or maybe Gen Beta when we get there. When they're adults, they'll be like, yeah, we gotta get these things in our brains so that we can do that. But then Gen Z is like, I don't know. People just love to complain about smartphones on their smartphones. Or as Dapper Dev or Bo Refik tend to say, one of these. And then they hold up the phone. I am actually using my phone to record this at this very moment, so I can't do that. But anyway, that contradiction says everything. This video is about technophobia, which I define as the fear of newer technological developments, and how the real issue isn't the tech. It's the fantasy that we could ever return to a world with no trade-offs. We keep acting like there's a perfect answer, whether it's go back to the way we used to do things or completely replace it. The answer is somewhere in the middle, and if we make any changes, there's going to be some kind of trade-off. There's no perfect answer, there is no perfect era, there is no perfect way to do things. Every era just picked different trade-offs. That's it. Tech doesn't solve problems, it shifts them. It's value neutral. Sure, it's a new tool that we have, but then the problem isn't really it, it's how we the people use it. But before we get into all that, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoy it. Comment what you think about all this, whether you think a lot of this technophobia is overhyped, or if you're a technophobe, go ahead and comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say so I'm not just speaking into an echo chamber. But getting back to the topic at hand, tech itself is value neutral. There is no good or bad to it. It's a mirror. It reflects us back at ourselves. So I had this writing teacher in 10th grade, not 10th grade, sophomore year of college, who when I tried bringing up something about technology, he was like, technology is always value neutral. Which is basically his way of saying it's not about the tech itself, it's about how we use it. So for example, an iPhone is just an iPhone. Yes, it has its operating system, but what matters is how we set it up and how we use it. So, if you don't want your iPhone to be pestering you all the time, you can literally just disable all notifications or change the focus. Now, me personally, I only accept notifications from important apps. Apps that actually have something to say. Like, you actually have a choice on how these things work to an extent. You know that, right? We frame tech as a moral issue when really it's about comfort and the fear of losing control. Which, like I said, you still have some level of control, you still have some level of choice. So, for example, you can use an app, or you can choose to not have it downloaded to your phone. You might need it for something, but ultimately there are still ways around it. Like, if I wanted to print out my movie ticket and just use that instead of pulling it up on my phone and scanning it at the box office, I could do that. I just choose to use it the way I am right now. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, the hypocrisy of smartphone complaints is what I really want to talk about. Everyone's mad at screens while staring at a screen. Smartphones are today's scapegoat for deeper discomforts, as far as I can tell. It's like with Dapper Dev, I have actually commented on his videos something about how he's complaining about it while using it. I'm actually going to try and bring up the actual comment, but the idea is he keeps on complaining about a technology he uses. Alright, in one of his videos, that's where he said almost everyone is cheating today and said something about people shouldn't have smartphones. I had to say that, unfortunately, they are essential to functioning in a first world country in 2025. Though it is possible to print out something like an airplane boarding pass, like my grandparents did last year for when they came to town. Like my grandfather, his fingers just can't use touch screens. That's just the way it is for him. So right now, there are still analog ways, which I won't deny are useful. Like on my day trip to Boston, offline, I had paper backups of all my tickets for everything I was doing just in case. I didn't end up having to use them, but it was better to have them but not need them than need them but not have them. And that gets into how we're in something of a beta testing period, if you will, that I'll talk more about later. Alright, I think it might take a while for me to find the Dapper Dev comment. Yeah, I can't find it, so we're just gonna move on. Anyway, it's all about growing pains and not collapse. I believe I mentioned this in my video where I reacted to that Lindy Glenn video about her deranged conspiracy theory about grocery stores implementing dynamic pricing, which, like I said, there's no way that would happen, even if they really wanted to, because of the inherent nature of a supermarket. Mobile ordering, QR code menus, store apps, restaurant subscriptions. People act like these are apocalyptic, like they're the end times, and yeah, I'd say restaurant subscriptions are a little overpriced and people choosing to use them instead of buying bulk supplies from the grocery store to stretch over a longer period of time isn't a great thing. I can completely understand not wanting to have to deal with cooking, as I have learned over the course of this year and gotten fed up with having to deal with full out cooking. I am probably going to be done with my breakfast tacos by the time this video comes out. I'll do a video about more of that later. Anyway, the reason that these things are awkward, like mobile ordering, QR code menus, and so on, isn't because they're inherently bad. It's just that they're new, like every major shift we've lived through. ATMs were seen as cold, impersonal, and job killing. Microwaves were going to ruin cooking. Caller ID was apparently called an invasion of privacy. I should really talk to some Gen Xers about how they felt about that change. If you're a Gen Xer or an older millennial who was an adult when caller ID was first introduced, you let me know in the comments because I know that caller ID is why prank calls have kind of faded away. Not only can they now see who's calling, they can also call you right back. Apparently, MP3s and iPods were going to destroy the album. The email made people say, I'll never use this over a phone call. Streaming was seen as killing the movie theater, but now all of these are normal or even inescapable. Everybody watching probably has at least one streaming service. Most people have a phone that operates as an MP3 or iPod, that being an iPhone or an Android. Everyone has some kind of email. Caller ID exists for literally every phone. More often, it shows the name right away, the associated name if you call a landline, but if you call a cell phone, you're going to see the number and you'll be able to call it right back. I used a microwave this morning to make the sausage links for my breakfast taco. But honestly, the way things are going today, ATMs are probably going to be a thing of the past at some point because people aren't going to be using cash as much. We'll see how that goes. We'll circle back to that another day. Anyway, on to subscriptions and trade-offs. Some subscriptions are predatory, I will admit. BMW charging for heated seats is definitely a scam, definitely a terrible idea. Not because of ownership or lack thereof. It's more about the fact that the hardware is physically there in the car that you bought. And hey, it's also a bad idea on their end because they fail to take into account that somebody, and I'm not saying that they're right to do this, would just go ahead and hack it so that they could use the heated seats for free. Look, it's going to happen at some point. Somebody is going to do that. Again, I'm not saying that they're right. I actually think that they're wrong to do that because they're disobeying the rules of the agreement between you and BMW when you bought that car. But I still agree that the subscription is a scam because it's kind of a waste if it's all the hardware's there. Like, why would you even include the hardware in there if you're not going to let them use it? But a lot of other subscriptions are just trade-offs. You lose permanence, but you gain some convenience. Like restaurant apps with rewards, streaming bundles, gaming subscriptions, they can make sense if you understand the trade. So in the case of streaming services and services like Game Pass or Nintendo Switch Online, the trade-off is you only have access to it as long as you're paying the price. As I said in my video about subscriptions, if you manage to utilize it to get your money's worth, I'd say that it's not a bad deal. I'm actually putting the expansion pack of Switch Online to full use right now. I just completed Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, which I got the upgrade patch for that, no extra cost beyond what I paid in the past to subscribe to Switch Online. And right now I'm playing through GoldenEye, so I'm getting my money's worth with the expansion pack. Streaming services. I'm currently using Apple TV Plus to watch through C. Decent show so far. At least as far as I can remember. I'm now at the halfway point. I'm not going to get too much into it. The restaurant apps with rewards. This is where I have to say, I do not get the pushback on that. Yes, it's a bit novel to go in and actually order with a human being. But damn it, it is really convenient, and I'm going to argue that we need to do more of online ordering so that we can improve the overarching experience. I know I keep bringing up that day trip to Boston, but I used the Blaze app to order my friend and I's dinner ahead of time. Like, we were in the Boston Public Garden when we put in the order, and then we officially sent it in by the time we got back to his car. We went from there to the Cambridge location, and when we got there, our pizzas were ready to go. And we both used the $9 pizza party for one deal, which was a single serve, one topping pizza with a beverage. $9 plus tax. That is actually a really good deal. Like, sure, it would be convenient if it were offered both in-store and in-app. I remember Aaron Clary complained about the Pi Day coupon being app exclusive, and he didn't want the app exclusive. He didn't want to have to sign up for the account. His choice, but I would argue it is worth it for the sake of getting that kind of discount, and especially if you go there regularly. Like, if you're going to go there regularly, it does eventually add up. Again, I would say don't go out of your way to go to these places or spend more money for the sake of earning more reward dollars later on. Like, if I wanted to, I could have stuck to my plans to see Jurassic World Rebirth and Superman. I could have been like, oh, at the very least, I'm going to get reward dollars for spending on the ticket and the popcorn and the sliders. But no, Movie Scout confirmed both of them were garbage. So I pulled the plug on them, and then Movie Scout confirmed the Fantastic Four First Steps was actually good, which is why I am checking it out for myself. And then the grocery loyalty programs. Everyone buys groceries. Why wouldn't you sign up for the grocery reward program? Unless you're Lindy Glenn with that deranged conspiracy theory about them building a profile to track you and your purchases to try and see what you're willing to pay so that they can amend the price accordingly. Again, that all sounds like a deranged conspiracy theory. These apps, these subscriptions, they can make sense if you understand the trade-off, which brings me to my point about physical media not being the fortress that the physical media people on YouTube make it out to be. They brag about owning their media. But let's be real, you don't own the movie or show or game. You own a copy. Digital and physical media are both licenses. Both can vanish. Digital, there is the risk of delisting, though in the case of the Apple Digital Store, it's really good about still having it there when it disappears. Like, I'm pretty sure The Godfather Part 3 disappeared, but I can unhide it if I want because I bought the digital copy and I can still download it to my devices and play it on my Apple TV if I so choose. But anyway, regardless of that, there's still also the possibility of a server outage or something like that. The upside of saving space by not having to store them anywhere. Even this one guy's recommendation of a disk binder, yeah, that still takes up space, and the disks are also a little too fragile for my taste. We'll get more into that in a second. But yeah, the upside, assuming the servers are working and it doesn't get delisted, it's near instant, meaning you can just hit play right there on the device. And then with physical media, there's the risk of disk rot, scratches, and theft. I have personal experiences with scratches that made me be like, yeah, I don't care about physical media anymore. Because when I was watching the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift and a couple of other movies, but that's one that I specifically remember. The disc scratches got so annoying and it caused the movie to freeze up so randomly. I had to switch to the digital copy on my Apple TV, and within a couple of months, I was done buying up physical copies of movies. And then within a year, I had dumped pretty much all of them at the savers. And I decided, you know what? My digital library is all I need. Now, there is the upside of the display that they talk about, and there is the fun of holding the case, even though, again, it's not really ownership. It is a license that just happens to be, excuse me, on an offline disk that works assuming there are no scratches. And then the digital copy works assuming there are no internet issues or that the servers on their end are working or anything like that. Neither is immortal because both ultimately depend on the power grid. So if you only have a disc, okay, if you have a portable DVD or Blu-ray player, that kind of negates it, but I don't know if the disc would get stuck in there in a power outage or you have to wait for the power to come back on to get the disc out. At least without risking damage to the Blu-ray player. But if the power goes out while I'm watching my digital copy of a movie or TV show that I have playing on the TV but downloaded to my phone and or MacBook, on my phone at the very least, and maybe the MacBook if it's not Netflix or any of the other streaming services. Right now I only have Apple TV Plus and Prime Video, both of which have the option to download to my MacBook. So if the power went out while I was watching DD on Prime Video, I could literally just open up my MacBook and finish it on that because I have it downloaded to the device. Both are just options, not solutions. Again, there's always a trade-off. Though quite frankly, if the power grid goes down for an extended period of time, at a certain point, none of this really matters because there are more important things to worry about. I'm just saying in the case of a short-term power outage of maybe a couple of hours at most, it can happen. I remember in about a year and a half ago now, we had a power outage for about 2 hours, I think. But suffice it to say, if I really wanted to watch something, I would have had something downloaded to my phone or my MacBook ready to go. But I digress. The point is, both of those have their trade-offs. I'm tired of the physical media people claiming you can, quote, own your media. Yes, you own a disc that houses the copy, but it's not like you bought the intellectual property rights. So if you were to buy a Blu-ray disc of Ghostbusters, you're not getting the rights to the Ghostbusters intellectual property. But you know what? Let's just move on to social media and streaming being tools, not addictions. Yes, social media can isolate, but it can also connect. It depends on how it's used. So, really, if you use it to just organize IRL meetups with, say, a Facebook group, then that would be an effective way to use it. You can also use it to just keep in touch here and there, then eventually be like, hey, you want to meet up in person? And then, yes, for streaming, it can encourage binging, but it also made independent cinema viable again because it's a lot easier for the streaming companies to just buy up indie films. Like some of the Apple TV Plus original movies are where they indie films, I think. Like they started out as indie films and then they can get picked up by the studio and then you can literally just go on the streaming service. Yes, it's costlier than before, but it is still convenient in the grand scheme of things. You just have to be willing to pay the price for the higher quality streaming if you care about that. Anyway, going back to the social media thing, Dee Dee captured this perfectly. In 2008, AIM and YouTube weren't the whole social life, they just amplified it. It's a trade off that we understood back then, and we might have forgotten it. So, if you didn't watch my video about how Dee Dee reflected all of this, the TLDR is AIM and YouTube were used as side dishes, if you will, for a social life, or to help bring it together. In the case of AIM, since it was grounded to a desktop computer, Chris was only able to message his friends from there. He was not able to message them literally anywhere, as I could with my phone if I'm anywhere else that isn't home. And then YouTube, he was limited to watching it there. I could literally bring up YouTube on my phone and watch it anywhere. Now, I don't always do that. I do it every now and then. But you know what? When I go with my friends, like when I went to the Museum of Science for adult night, I tried to limit my phone usage to taking photos and yes, I checked YouTube Studio. But the point is, they were used as tools to enhance social life, which is what I'm trying to do in my personal life by using my phone to bring up things I want to show to my friends in person so I can see their reactions and such. But I try to avoid getting into online conversations when I have my friends with me in real life. Anyway, circling back to media and such, digital game stores, the same license, it's just invisible. Digital game stores aren't evil, they're just new. It's the same transaction, just hidden behind a login screen. You're still licensing the game, it's still dependent on electricity, and it's still vulnerable to terms of service changes. It's just less tangible, which makes people nervous. Okay, maybe before the internet and such, yes, the entire game was on the cartridge or disc, which is almost never the case these days. I've heard a lot about this, what was it called? Stop deleting games? The Stop Killing Games movement, I think it's called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was called Stop Killing Games, where, okay, if someone paid $60 for a game that was entirely online, there was no offline playability, I think it's fair to ask for that or to demand a refund if they're not going to support it for a reasonably expected period of time. The reason I think that the 3DS and Wii U eShops were brought down by Nintendo when they were was a mix of the reasonable amount of time, meaning they were there for a reasonable amount of time where people would be able to buy them and then enjoy them, and then, yeah, it would have been legally considered a reasonable amount of time for that. They gave advance warnings that people could make final purchases and download their what they've bought already. But the reason they were able to legally take it down, aside from the concerns about the strength of security reasons with payment methods and such, there was also the matter of I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the point is a digital game is the same license as a physical game. Same thing with movies and TV. There's always going to be the trade-off of the different ways that you can lose it eventually. Like when I was younger, my siblings and I would lose Nintendo DS game cartridges all the time. That's why digital is still more convenient in my opinion, because you don't have to worry about losing that game cartridge. But I digress. Anyway, on to dating apps now, which have broken incentives but not broken technology. I've talked about how these dating apps never worked for me, but they're not a complete moral failure. Now, hear me out. The problem is the incentive structure. The platforms want you to keep swiping but not find love, because Bo Refik pointed out that if you if these companies actually put you together with a match and you found your forever spouse, then you would stop using their app, which means they couldn't serve you ads and make money or sell you the things that they add on to it or the subscription. Honestly, I think apps that are dating apps being paid only might be a better idea, because then it filters out anyone who doesn't want to. It filters out bots and OF promoters. Like, you have a vested interest in actually putting in the work to find a real date and not that. So, yeah, there is an incentive for the platforms to keep you single so that they can keep making money, which they kind of have to do, which I can understand. It's a bad business model, but it's not bad technology, the whole swiping setup. I mean, here's the thing. If there was you have to pay to play, that would actually eliminate all the bots. It might not eliminate all the OF promoters, but it would definitely reduce their incentive. But yeah, maybe if they restructured their business model to switch into a in a relationship mode that focused on finding friends and other things like Bumble BFF, that might be a better way to go where they can still make money, but at the same time, not destroy the fabric of society. Just some food for thought if anyone at the match group is watching this. There's a free idea for you. Anyway, the point of all of this is that technophobia is just fear of change, really, when you sit down and think about it. People don't hate tech, they hate that it forces them to adapt, to change how they move through the world. Especially the 50 plus demographic that my TV teacher said that advertisers do not care about because they're, quote, set in their ways. He said it, not me. So, because of that, advertisers don't care about people who are 50 and older because they're far less likely to switch to something. So, someone in their 50s is far less likely to switch from Android to iPhone or vice versa. Whereas someone my age, 28, might be more inclined to consider trying a different operating system. Not me personally, I am an Apple sheep through and through. Or someone my age might be inclined to try a new video game ecosystem. Like, I've been looking into PC gaming because of the whole Switch to bricking fiasco, which has made me genuinely scared to play my games online with other people. Or I feel like I'm walking on eggshells when I'm playing on my Switch 2. I'm just going to be completely honest about that. I'm still going to keep the system for now. Anyway, you'll notice that the sphere follows the same pattern generation after generation. Silent Jenners and Boomers demonized rock music in the 80s with the whole satanic panic. They did the same thing with comic books. They thought Walkmans would ruin society. We just moved on to smartphones and AI with the Gen Xers who grew up as the ones being demonized by the adults of the satanic panic. They're now the ones who are living in fear of the smartphones and AI and the whole digital infrastructure. Who knows? Maybe 20 years from now, Gen Z will be doing something similar with whatever happens, whatever comes up 20 years from now. Once all the mobile ordering is there, maybe once things like mobile ordering and such are stable and frictionless, we're going to have something else that they're going to resist, like maybe brain implants, where the generation after Gen Beta, or maybe Gen Beta when we get there, when they're adults, they'll be like, yeah, we gotta get these things in our brains so that we can do that. But then Gen Z is like, I don't know. This is this seems kind of invasive. But yeah, on that note, I'm gonna leave it here for the video because there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Every era had tech that felt overwhelming, unnatural, and dangerous until it didn't. We don't live in a broken world. We live in a changing one. The question isn't how do we stop tech from taking over? It's how do we make peace with the fact that everything changes and nothing comes free. So rather than trying to resist these kinds of things, I think it's best to just learn how to roll with it. We have to learn to live with technology rather than try and reject it and go off into our own little Amish style communities. So I'm going to wrap it up here for the video. You let me know in the comments down below. A tech development, you hated it first, but now couldn't imagine life without. Personally, I was always resistant to the idea of Amazon Prime until the end of college when I got a Amazon gift card for a graduation present, and I decided to sign up for Amazon and use it to get extra batteries for this camera I bought the day after my final. And suffice it to say, I realized Amazon is a really good way to order things. Yes, you have to be mindful of what you're doing, like literally any other situation where you shop in person. But I discovered it is very useful, and now I can't imagine life without it. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for daily videos of cultural commentary from a man caught between generations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.